Chapter 93. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tianlan Kingdom, Royal Palace. Uncle Zhongyi knelt on the ground, listening to Emperor Tianlan's words with growing dread. When the emperor finished, he said calmly, "You understand what needs to be done, Uncle Zhongyi, correct?" "Yes, Your Majesty." Uncle Zhongyi stammered. "I understand completely. I'll return home and teach that wicked boy a lesson he won't soon forget." Emperor Tianlan nodded. "See that you do. Otherwise." Uncle Zhongyi, his face etched with fear, quickly replied, "Your Majesty, you have my word, it will be handled." He bowed deeply and backed away. On the ride back to his mansion, Uncle Zhongyi was still shaking. He couldn't believe Holy Son Xiantian had taken a fancy to a girl from the Kangwuhu mansion. The thought of his youngest sons, Lin Wenbai and Su Zhitong, sent shivers down his spine. Genocide, that was what this could mean. Kangwuhu mansion, in a quiet attic, Su Zhitong was practicing, eyes closed in concentration. Knowing she'd started late, she always pushed herself hard. Her mother, Mrs. Lu, entered the room. Su Zhitong opened her eyes and smiled. "Mom, it's late." "What's up?" Mrs. Lu sat beside her, forcing a smile. "Just wanted to see you." Su Zhitong saw the worry in her mother's eyes. "What's wrong, Mom?" Mrs. Lu's eyes welled up. "Your father was just summoned to the palace by His Majesty." "Why?" Su Zhitong asked, alarmed. "Why would the emperor summon him so suddenly?" "It's about you," Mrs. Lu said. Su Zhitong frowned. "Me? What is it?" Mrs. Lu's voice trembled. "Holy Son Xiantian wants to take you as a concubine." Su Zhitong gasped. "What? Holy Son Xiantian wants me as a concubine?" She couldn't wrap her head around it. She knew of Holy Son Xiantian, of course. The Holy Son of the Xiantian sect, a legend in the eastern wasteland. But he was a distant figure, like something out of a myth, and now, he wanted her as a concubine. A concubine? No. She wouldn't do it. Su Zhitong shook her head violently. "Mother, I can't. I don't want to be a concubine," Madame Lu sobbed. "But if you refuse, the entire Kangwu Marquis mansion will be wiped out. Annihilated." Tears streamed down Su Zhitong's face. "So, because I don't want to be his concubine, they'll destroy my whole family." Lu cried out. "No one says no to the Holy Son of Xiantian, Zhitong. He is Holy Son Xiantian. Even if he were to forgive the Su family, the Emperor of Tianlan would still see this as an opportunity to strike." Su Nanting, who had been listening at the door, finally entered the room. Seeing the tears on his daughter's face twisted his heart, but the thought of claiming the throne hardened his resolve. His face was etched with sadness. "Zhitong, these have been hard years in the court, and the emperor grows more suspicious of our Kangwuhu mansion with each passing day." Su Zhitong nodded silently, knowing he spoke the truth. With tears in his eyes, Su Nanting continued, "If you refuse, Holy Son Xiantian might not target us directly, but the emperor will use it as an excuse to destroy our family. Think of the thousands who live here in the Kangwuhu mansion." Su Zhitong felt a surge of despair. "Isn't there any other way?" "Father, I don't want this," Su Nanting pleaded. "Becoming Holy Son Xuantian's concubine is different. His concubine would be more powerful than any princess in this kingdom. Holy Son Xiantian is destined to rule the eastern wasteland. Being in his service would be beneficial for you." Mrs. Lu chimed in. "Zhitong, you've had so many setbacks to your cultivation. This small Tianlan kingdom cannot give you the future you deserve. By Holy Son Xuantian's side, you will have access to countless resources. With your talents, reaching godhood is definitely in your grasp." Su Zhitong remained silent, shaking her head. Su Nanting added, "If you become the Holy Son of Xiantian, the Mingxin sect will support my declaration as emperor. Then, I will no longer need to tiptoe around the court, living in fear. Help your father found his own kingdom, and I will make your mother the queen." Su Zhitong finally looked up at her mother, Mrs. Lu. She had always been close to her mother, who had sacrificed so much for her. She always wanted her mother to have a better life, a queen of a country. She was torn, unsure what to choose, her family's safety versus her own future. Did she really want to be a concubine? Su Nanting pleaded, Zhidong, think of it as repaying your mother and me for raising you. Serving Holy Sun Xiantian would bring us honor. The entire Kangwu Marquis mansion would rise because of you. Hearing her parents' arguments, Su Zhidong felt they were like strangers. A feeling of complete powerlessness washed over her, and that same feeling was taking hold of Lin Wenbai, the young master of Uncle Zhongyi's household. Chapter 94. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Uncle Zhongyi got back, he barked at the servants, "Where's the young master?" Uncle Zhongyi, a powerhouse at the peak of the divine will, was so furious that the servants trembled, unable to speak. He scoffed and headed into the inner courtyard. There, his wife, Mrs. Lu, greeted him excitedly, "Honey. Wenbai's out of seclusion. He's reached the Yuandan realm." Normally, Uncle Zhongyi would have been thrilled. In the Tianlan kingdom, reaching Yuandan at 20 meant you were a genius and the Zhongyi house had a bright future, but now, he just snapped, "Where is that idiot? Where is he?" Mrs. Lu was stunned, confused by his attitude. "Honey. What's wrong?" she murmured. Uncle Zhongyi roared, "I asked, where is he?" Terrified, Mrs. Lu stammered, "Wenbai's in the training pavilion." Uncle Zhongyi scoffed, turned on his heel, and stormed off. Mrs. Lu, pale and bewildered by his reaction to such good news, gritted her teeth and hurried after him. At the Liangong pavilion in Uncle Zhongyi's mansion, Lin Wenbai, a handsome and talented 20-year-old, was basking in the glow of having reached the Yuandan realm, a feat that made him a genius in the Tianlan kingdom. A smile touched his lips as he thought of Su Zhidong. He and Su Zhidong had been childhood sweethearts, and he'd always been in love with her, but Su Zhidong's talent had shone brighter. She'd reached Yuandan 6 years earlier, becoming a legend, which had made him feel inadequate. Spurred on, the previously lazy Lin Wenbai had thrown himself into seclusion and finally caught up. Now, he was finally worthy to propose marriage to the Kangwu mansion. He'd ask his father right away. He thought happily. Suddenly, the door burst open. Lin Wenbai looked up to see his father, Uncle Zhongyi. "Dad, I reached the Yuandan realm," he exclaimed. Uncle Zhongyi ignored him, his face like stone. "Let me ask you something. Are you in love with Su Zhidong from the Kangwu mansion?" Oblivious, Lin Wenbai blushed and said eagerly, "Yes. I love Zhidong." "Dad, when are we going to ask for her hand?" Uncle Zhongyi's heart sank. This was a disaster of epic proportions. Only then did Lin Wenbai notice his father's grim expression. His heart skipped a beat. "What's wrong, Dad?" Uncle Zhongyi glared at his son and said, "From today on, you're forbidden from seeing Su Zhidong. You're not even allowed to think about her." Lin Wenbai stared at his father in disbelief. "Why? I've reached the Yuandan realm. I'm worthy of Zhidong now." Unable to contain his fury, Uncle Zhongyi slapped Lin Wenbai hard. Lin Wenbai crashed to the ground, clutching his face, his eyes wide with disbelief. He couldn't understand his father's sudden hostility. Mrs. Lu rushed in, horrified by the scene. She threw herself beside her son, crying, "Honey, why are you doing this?" Uncle Zhongyi said gravely, "Holy Sun Xiantian has set his sights on Su Zhidong and wants her as his concubine. Now do you understand?" Lin Wenbai and Mrs. Lu were dumbstruck. Holy Sun Xiantian. The name was so distant, so powerful, that Lin Wenbai was momentarily speechless. Mrs. Lu, who came from a minor sect, understood the implications of Holy Sun Xuantian's power far more acutely and immediately grasped the danger. How could it be Holy Sun Xiantian? Lin Wenbai mumbled. Uncle Zhongyi roared, "If you still have feelings for Su Zhidong, my entire Zhongyi mansion will be wiped off the map. The emperor himself warned me." Mrs. Lu, terrified by the news, pleaded, "Son, forget about Miss Su Zhidong. She's out of your reach now. Don't destroy our family." Lin Wenbai, a sheltered young man, was overwhelmed by the threat of annihilation, torn between the woman he loved and the survival of his family. Seeing his mother's tearful face and his father's desperate eyes, Lin Wenbai wavered. But he still cried out, "I just love Su Zhidong. Is that a crime? Uncle Zhongyi trembled. It wasn't, but Holy Sun Xiantian wants her. Now it is. He grabbed his chest, his face contorted in pain. Don't think about Su Zhidong anymore. And you can't harbor any resentment toward Holy Sun Xiantian. Not even a trace. Or our Lin family is finished, not even a trace of resentment. Lin Wenbai felt like he was losing his mind, consumed by helplessness. A powerful man wants to take the woman he loves. Not only is he powerless to stop him, but he can't even hate him. Or his family will be destroyed. In that moment, Lin Wenbai understood his weakness and powerlessness. Uncle Zhongyi looked at his son with pity and said, I'll arrange a marriage for you tonight. And tomorrow, you're coming with me to the Kangwuhu mansion. His voice broke. You're going to persuade Su Zhidong to agree to become Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine. The emperor ordered my Lin family to do this. If I refuse, we're all doomed. Lin Wenbai stared blankly at his father, feeling as if his heart had been torn out and stomped on. He was speechless. Could anything be more cruel? Chapter 95. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the Tianlan Kingdom, at the Kangwuhu mansion, Su Zhidong sat in her room, stunned. Last night had changed everything. Just yesterday, she was carefree. Now, she was being forced to become Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine. Refusal meant the destruction of the entire Kangwuhu mansion, but then she thought of her parents. If she became the Holy Sun's concubine, they could become royalty, finally free from the emperor's constant scrutiny and their precarious existence. She had to repay their kindness. Suddenly, Lin Wenbai, her childhood sweetheart, flashed into her mind. Before his seclusion, he'd promised to ask for her hand in marriage upon his return. She wondered how he was doing. By the time he emerged from seclusion, she'd likely be gone from Tianlan Kingdom, off to Xiantian's sect. Just then, a maid announced, Miss, Lord Zhongyi and Mr. Lin Wenbai are here. They're in the main hall. The Marquis requests your presence. Su Zhidong's eyes widened. Could it be? Was Lin Wenbai here to propose? Hope surged within her, and she rushed to the front hall. Kangwuhu, Su Nanting, sat at the head of the table, with Lord Zhongyi and Lin Wenbai also seated. Seeing her, Lord Zhongyi smiled. Niece Zhidong grows more beautiful with each passing day. Lord Kangwu, you've raised a fine daughter. Lin Wenbai stared at the floor, silent. Su Zhidong sat next to her father, listening as he exchanged pleasantries with Lord Zhongyi. What brings you here today, Lord Zhongyi? Su Nanting inquired. Lord Zhongyi smiled. My son has decided to marry next month. I'm here to deliver the wedding invitation, hoping for your attendance. A chance to show off a little, haha. Su Zhidong stared at Lin Wenbai in disbelief. Betrayal stabbed at her heart, disappointment and anger welled up inside. Oh. And who is the lucky lady marrying into your family? Su Nanting asked, a smile playing on his lips. The daughter of a Fengtai official. A suitable match, indeed. Lord Zhongyi sighed inwardly, regretting that his son and Su Zhidong weren't meant to be. Su Nanting, however, felt no such regret. She was to become the Holy Sun's concubine. Soon, he could establish his own kingdom, something he'd never dreamed possible. Lin Wenbai kept his head down, afraid to meet Su Zhidong's gaze. He couldn't bear to face the woman he loved. Lord Zhongyi and Su Nanting exchanged a knowing look. I hear Holy Sun Xiantian desires your niece Zhidong as his concubine, Lord Zhongyi said with a smile. Congratulations, Lord Kangwu. What an honor. A momentous occasion for our entire Tianlan kingdom. He looked pointedly at Lin Wenbai, raising his voice as he asked, wouldn't you agree, Wenbai? Su Zhidong fixed her gaze on Lin Wenbai, desperate to hear his answer. Lin Wenbai's face twitched. Yes, he said with difficulty. I agree. He felt all the strength leave his body. Su Zhidong couldn't believe what she was hearing. He seemed like a stranger. You think I should become the Holy Sun's concubine, too? She asked, her voice trembling. Lin Wenbai's heart twisted in agony. How could he let her go? But he thought of his family, his parents. If he didn't comply, the emperor would destroy the Zhongyi mansion. He had to submit to this cruel reality. He heard his own voice saying, "Holy son Xiantian is an extraordinary man, Zhitong. It's an honor, your good fortune, to become his concubine." Su Zhitong's heart plunged into darkness. She became expressionless, never taking her eyes off Lin Wenbai. She nodded slowly. "Father, I agree to this. I'm a little tired. I'll return to my room to rest." Su Nanting and Lord Zhongyi exchanged pleased glances. Lin Wenbai watched her leave, wanting to shout, "Zhitong, don't go." But he couldn't. He didn't dare, seeing that Su Zhitong had agreed. Lord Zhongyi and Su Nanting's plan had worked. Lord Zhongyi stood up, bid farewell to Su Nanting, and left with Lin Wenbai. Seeing his son's ashen face, looking like a walking corpse, Lord Zhongyi sighed. He could only hope that time would heal the wounds. Chapter 96. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hundreds of millions of miles from the Xiantian sect, the Yuanshi Gate and the ancient shrine are on a collision course, poised to erupt into all-out war. The Dacian dynasty, backed by the Yuanshi Gate, and the Daxia dynasty, supported by the ancient shrine palace, have been locked in conflict for ages. The two holy grounds aren't about to throw all their chips on the table at once. Instead, they're starting with these mortal kingdoms to gauge the opponent's strength. Besides, neither holy ground really cares about losses in the mortal realm. Mortals are like ants in the eyes of cultivators. Dynasties clash, and tens of millions of mortals perish, but to the holy lands, they're barely even cannon fodder. They're just a distraction before the real battle. The Dacian and Daxia dynasties are both vast, controlling thousands of miles of territory and fielding armies in the millions. Locked in battle across a vast plain, the land runs red with blood. It's like a scene from hell. Millions of soldiers have died, and countless civilians have perished due to the war. People are displaced, their lives ruined, but the cultivators couldn't care less. Tens of millions of mortals. With their birth rates, they'll be replaced in a century. A century is a lifetime for a mortal, several generations, but for a cultivator, it's just a retreat. For those with divine powers and above, it's a blink of an eye. The higher-ups from both holy grounds are sitting this one out for now. The ones fighting are mostly cultivators in the Yuan Dan realm or some in the Divine Will realm, so, neither dynasty can gain a clear advantage yet, but the tension is palpable. Both the Yuanshi Gate and the ancient shrine have started recruiting disciples above the Yuan Dan realm, stockpiling their forces. Rumor has it that powerhouses from both the Yuanshi Gate and the ancient shrine palace have been deployed to the front lines. And other countries under their control are getting restless, mobilizing, ready for a full-scale war at any moment. The shadow of war hangs over the entire eastern wasteland. Xiantian sect, Taishu Peak. Qin Ting was meditating when Niayu entered, announcing, "Master." Qin Ting opened his eyes, looking at Niayu, and inquired, "What is it?" Niayu met Qin Ting's gaze, feeling a tremor in his heart, his face tingling slightly. He's becoming more and more inscrutable. He thought, with respect etched on his face. He said, "News from the Mingxin sect." Su Zhitong agreed. Then, confused, he asked, "Young master, why are you being so polite to her? You could send someone from the altar to take her out. If she doesn't obey, wipe out the entire Tianlan kingdom and see if she changes her mind." Qin Ting shook his head, offering no explanation. Su Zhitong is a chosen one, and the system has presented him with a novel way to accumulate luck points, that is when the child of destiny completely surrenders. If he forced her, causing her to resent him, things would get complicated. Of course, if he couldn't get her to completely yield, he'd resort to force. A hint of coldness flickered in Qin Ting's eyes. But for now, he could have some fun. After all, Qin Ting was interested in molding the chosen one. With this in mind, he instructed Niayu, use the Taiyu flying tower to retrieve Su Zhitong from the Tianlan kingdom. And go yourself. Niayu was taken aback. The Taiyu flying tower. That was a flying ship specifically for the young master. And he's asking me to go. He must value this girl a lot, he thought. I'll have to treat Su Zhitong with the utmost respect. Niayu bowed and departed. Qin Ting mused, to get Su Zhidong to completely surrender, I have to shatter her self-confidence and show her the massive gulf between us. Su Zhidong comes from a small pond. Time to open her eyes to the true peak, first, break her spirit. But his immediate concern was Bai Ling's condition. Ever since consuming the demon pill from the giant python in the Xuandu immortal realm, Bai Ling has been in a deep slumber. Even during the earth-shattering clash between Qin Ting and the holy son of Yuanshi, Bai Ling didn't stir, remaining in a deep sleep. Bai Ling's aura is growing denser, far beyond the magical power realm, approaching the divine power realm. Rumor has it that divine beasts undergo a transformation upon reaching the divine platform realm. Bai Ling, what kind of surprise are you going to bring me? Chapter 97. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tianlan Kingdom, the royal palace. Headmaster Pei listened to Emperor Tianlan's report, a smile playing on his lips. So, Headmaster Pei chuckled, Su Zhidong has agreed to become Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine. Emperor Tianlan bowed. Yes, sir. The plan worked. Headmaster Pei was elated. The whole affair was finally settled, and perfectly at that. Mingxin sect would forever hold a special place in Holy Sun Xuantian's heart. And, if Mingxin sect could further cultivate a relationship with Su Zhidong, it would become a force to be reckoned with in the eastern wasteland. To be known as an influential ally of Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine. The thought alone sent a jolt of excitement through Headmaster Pei. Our Mingxin sect is about to skyrocket. Excellent. Headmaster Pei beamed. Well done. I think I'll pay Mrs. Su a visit. With that, he vanished. Emperor Tianlan was left standing alone, mulling over Headmaster Pei's words. A visit? The leader of a great sect, a powerful figure from the divine palace, was actually going to visit a girl in the Yuan Dan realm. All because she was destined to be Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine. In that moment, Emperor Tianlan truly grasped the immense power Holy Sun Xuantian wielded. Kangwuhu Mansion, the main hall. Su Nanting stared in awe at the man before him, Headmaster Pei of Mingxin sect. He couldn't believe Headmaster Pei had personally come to Kangwuhu Mansion. This was a titan from the divine palace, the supreme leader of a territory spanning hundreds of thousands of miles. Headmaster Pei smiled, all charm and politeness, a stark contrast to his usual demeanor. No need to be alarmed, Marquis Kangwu, he said. Ha! I'm simply here to visit Mrs. Su. Visit? Mrs. Su? Su Nanting was momentarily dumbfounded, then it clicked. Headmaster Pei was referring to his daughter, Su Zhidong. He immediately instructed his servants to fetch her, the realization dawning on him. A visit, a divine palace powerhouse using the word visit in reference to a girl in the Yuan Dan realm. Su Nanting had thought he understood the extent of Holy Sun Xuantian's influence, but seeing Headmaster Pei's deference, he understood he'd only scratched the surface. What is true power? This was a clear demonstration. He was overjoyed that Holy Sun Xuantian had chosen his daughter. Soon, Su Zhidong arrived. She was a bit flustered to hear that Headmaster Pei from Mingxin sect was here. After all, even a Mingxin sect elder in the Shentai realm was a big deal in her eyes, let alone the headmaster, a super heavyweight in the divine palace realm. Before Su Zhidong could even greet him, Headmaster Pei's smile turned, well, almost fawning. He bowed respectfully to Su Zhidong. Headmaster Pei Tao of Mingxin sect greets Mrs. Su. Su Zhidong and Su Nanting were both stunned by the greeting, a divine palace powerhouse bowing to Su Zhidong, who was in the Yuan Dan realm. Headmaster Pei. Su Zhidong stammered. Headmaster Pei straightened up, smiling. As the concubine of Holy Sun Xuantian, Mrs. Su holds a position of great honor. Of course, I must pay my respects. Only then did the reality of being Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine truly hit Su Zhidong. The status changes. As a divine palace powerhouse, Headmaster Pei was one of the most important figures in the world. Very few people in the entire eastern wasteland were worthy of such reverence, yet, here he was, bowing to her, Su Zhidong. An indescribable feeling welled up inside her. Becoming Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine might be even better than she imagined. Su Zhidong composed herself and asked, "Headmaster Pei, what brings you here?" Headmaster Pei chuckled. "Firstly, I wanted to visit you, Madam Su. And secondly, I wanted to ask if you had any requests. Mingxin sect will do everything in its power to fulfill them." Su Zhidong instinctively wanted to decline, but then an idea sparked in her mind. Becoming Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine wasn't exactly her choice. But she didn't harbor any resentment toward her parents, Holy Sun Xiantian, or even Lin Wenbai, but she did resent Emperor Tianlan. He'd always been suspicious of the Kangwu Ho mansion. If Su Nanting hadn't been so cautious and also a powerful cultivator, it would have been tough to deal with him. She feared Emperor Tianlan would have long ago uprooted the Kangwu mansion. Even now, Emperor Tianlan continued to put pressure on her family. Moreover, he played a despicable role in forcing her to become Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine. Thinking of this, Su Zhidong said, "I want my father to become the ruler of Tianlan Kingdom." Not even as she said it, Su Zhidong hesitated, unsure if she was asking for too much, but Headmaster Pei immediately bowed. "As you wish, Madam Su." In his eyes, it was a minor matter. If pleasing Mrs. Su meant Mingxin sect would become a leading force in the future, then so be it. Tianlan Kingdom was nothing. As for Emperor Tianlan, though he was usually very respectful towards Mingxin sect, he was expendable. For Mingxin sect's grand plan, this person could be sacrificed. Seeing Headmaster Pei's immediate agreement and his respectful demeanor, Su Zhidong finally understood her significance as the concubine of Holy Sun Xiantian. A single word could determine the life or death of a king. Maybe becoming Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine wasn't so bad after all. Chapter 98. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin Ting was in Taishu Peak at the Xiantian sect, meticulously reviewing his villain system. He'd been racking up villain points lately, killing the Holy Son of Yuanshi in the Xuandu immortal domain and wiping out all the Yuanshiman disciples had netted him 1.1 million points, and instigating the conflict between Yuanshiman and the ancient shrine added another 2.3 million. That brought Qin Ting's total to a cool 3.4 million. The system had rewarded him with 34 lottery chances, but he wasn't ready to cash them in yet. Ever since hatching the real dragon by laying from a random spirit beast egg, he'd become increasingly aware of how important luck was. His luck score could affect the lottery's payout. Even though he had 100 luck points right now, Qin Ting still felt like it wasn't enough. Wait until I've drained every last drop of Su Zhidong's luck before I try my hand at the lottery. He thought. Just then, a maid arrived to announce, "Young master, the Elders' Hall has summoned you for a meeting." You had already escorted Su Zhidong away on the Taiyu Faloo, so a maid was sent to deliver the message this time. Qin Ting gave a slight nod and said calmly, "Understood." He walked to the entrance of Taishu Peak Palace and gazed at the sunset in the distance, a scene straight out of a dream, a true fairyland. Yet in the direction of that sunset, hundreds of millions of miles away, two holy grounds were locked in a brutal war. Qin Ting knew that this summons from the Elders' Hall was to discuss Xiantian sect's next move. As he flew toward the Elders' Hall, disciples he passed along the way greeted him with bows. "Greetings, son." "Hail, son." Qin Ting smiled and nodded, his approachable demeanor putting everyone at ease. He held immense power within the Xiantian sect these days. With Jiang Zhongbai and Song Chang'e dead, Feng Qianhan had pledged his allegiance to Qin Ting, and Luo Yuan had always shown him respect. The new disciples Fu Qian and Zhao Linger lacked any significant foundation or ambition. That meant Qin Ting had no rivals in the sect. The Xiantian sect's Elder Hall, although it was Qin Ting's first time here, he could immediately sense the Elders' Hall's profound mystique. Calling it a hall didn't quite capture it. It was more like a miniature world. Stepping inside, Qin Ting felt as if he'd entered a star-filled sky. Stars twinkled like dreams, and thrones surrounded by Dao Yun runes were scattered throughout the space, exuding majesty and mystery. After greeting the elders, Qin Ting took a seat and looked around. None of them spoke, they were all waiting patiently. He realized that his father, Emperor Qin, was also expected at this meeting. Silence fell over the Elders' Hall as Qin Ting closed his eyes, carefully considering the situation. After a long pause, the entire starry sky lit up, and an overwhelming aura descended upon the hall. A majestic figure appeared on the highest throne, the pinnacle of power in the Elders' Hall. Like a deity from the highest heavens, he was imposing and unfathomable. The Xiantian sect's virtual god powerhouse. Emperor Qin. Many elders in the hall stood and bowed, saying, "Greetings, great elder of the cabinet." The Xiantian sect elders were all called cabinet elders, and Emperor Qin held the title of great elder, wielding the power to make decisions for the sect. Emperor Qin's voice echoed, "No need for formalities." Everyone sat back down, and the meeting began as soon as he arrived. An elder spoke first, "The Yuanshi sect and the ancient shrine are on the verge of all-out war. How should our Xiantian sect respond?" Another added, "The conflict between these two holy grounds could drag on for a century or more. Since neither side is likely to win decisively, perhaps we should remain neutral." A third voice chimed in, "I doubt the ancient shrine can stand up to the Yuanshi sect. After all, their only virtual god powerhouse is Tianjizi, their leader." Another elder countered, "Don't forget the ancient shrine possesses the holy artifact Heavenly Book. The Yuanshi sect may have 3 virtual gods, but without a holy artifact, their victory is far from guaranteed." One elder said gravely, "No matter who wins, the Yuanshi sect or the ancient shrine, it's not necessarily bad for our Xiantian sect. Even if the Yuanshi sect prevails, it will be a Pyrrhic victory. Many of the shrine's powerful figures will fall, widening the gap between them and us." This sentiment was met with approval from the other elders. Indeed, our Xiantian sect remains the foremost holy ground in the eastern wasteland. Hesitation can lead to decline. The shrine may have numerous powerful individuals, but they can't replace our years of cultivation. Hearing this, Qin Ting scoffed, short-sighted. Though his words were blunt, the elders didn't take offense. Emperor Qin, a virtual god powerhouse, was present. No one wanted to provoke Qin Ting in his presence. Besides, most of these elders had allied themselves with the Qin family and become Qin's disciples. Qin Ting was their young master. In a stricter sense, he was their master, and they were his servants. One elder smiled and said, "We are eager to hear what the Holy Son has to say. Perhaps we haven't fully considered all the angles." Chapter 99. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin Ting smiled slightly and asked, "Do you know how long our Xiantian sect has been around?" An elder looked serious and declared, "The founder, Xiantian Renren, established our Xiantian sect 68,000 years ago." The elders beamed with pride. With such a long history, only the ancient shrine palace could compare. The other holy places were Johnny-come-latelys. Qin Ting then inquired, "How long has the Yuanshi gate been established?" Immediately, the elder's expression soured. The Yuanshi gate was only 70,000 years old, not even a fraction of the Xiantian sect's age. Yet, in that time, they'd become a behemoth, the second strongest holy place in the eastern wasteland. Qin Ting pressed on, 70,000 years. A sect founded just 70,000 years ago is already a holy place with 3 major virtual gods and 21 powerhouses. At this rate, it won't be long before they overtake us. The elders looked grave, knowing he spoke the truth. Xiantian sect boasted over 30 powerhouses, 4 virtual gods, and even a supreme elder in the realm of gods. In sheer numbers, they were unmatched in the eastern wasteland. But that was thanks to their centuries of heritage. Yuanshi Gate, in just 70,000 years, had already produced 3 virtual gods and 21 powerhouses. While they still lagged behind Xiantian sect, the gap was shrinking. Qin Ting said, "While the ancient god palace is a holy land too, with its age and the sacred artifact Heavenly Book, I'll bet they'll lose to the Yuanshi sect." "They're going down," the elders nodded. The ancient god palace simply didn't have enough virtual gods. Tianjizi, the leader, was the only one. Even with the Heavenly Book, he might not stand a chance against Yuanshi sect's 3 virtual gods. Plus, the Yuanshi sect had more powerhouses overall. It was a 3-to-7 split at best. Qin Ting continued, "Our biggest advantage is the sacred artifact. But if the Yuanshi sect swallows the ancient shrine and gets their hands on the Heavenly Book, will we still be the top holy land in the eastern wasteland 1,000 years from now?" The elders remained silent, acknowledging the gravity of the situation. Finally, an elder asked, "What do you suggest?" "Mediate." We could show our support for the ancient shrine, and Yuanshi Gate might back off, Qin Ting scoffed. No way. That would only make things worse. We need to get them fighting as soon as possible. The elders were shocked, but they weren't stupid. They immediately understood his plan. While Yuanshi Gate was occupied with the ancient shrine, they'd join forces with the shrine to attack them from both sides. The elders breathed a sigh of relief. Xuantian's holy son had guts. Yuanshi Gate was the second strongest holy land, with countless powerhouses and vast territory. A true titan. After a long silence, the elders weighed the plan's feasibility and potential benefits. Yuanshi sect was strong, but Xiantian's sect was stronger. With the ancient god palace attacking too, Yuanshi Gate could be destroyed. And if they timed their intervention right, Xiantian sect's losses would be manageable. Dividing the spoils with the ancient god palace would make it worth the risk. They'd eliminate Yuanshi sect and gain access to their resources, the resources of the second largest holy land. 2 birds, 1 stone. From then on, Xiantian sect's position as the top holy land would be unassailable. The elders nodded. Agreed, an elder chuckled. The holy son truly has the makings of a hero. Soon, there'll only be 5 holy places in the eastern wasteland. Qin Ting chuckled and said, no, only 4. The elders trembled and stared at him in disbelief. 4 holy places? Could it be? Qin Ting quietly said, after this battle, the ancient palace will be weakened beyond repair. We have to seize this opportunity. A chill went down the elders' spines. The ancient shrine was a holy place with centuries of history. They'd coexisted with the Xiantian sect in the eastern wasteland for ages. They'd always been allies, yet Qin Ting planned to betray them, to annex 2 holy places. This son was monstrous. Emperor Qin, who had been resting, opened his eyes and looked at his son. He saw endless ambition in Qin Ting's eyes. Emperor Qin smiled. His son was arrogant enough to swallow mountains and rivers. This was his heir. The pride of the Qin family. Chapter 100. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiantian sect, Taishu Peak. 3 days ago, at the elders' hall meeting, Qin Ting had completely won them over. He still remembered the almost awestruck look in their eyes. Before, they'd been polite because he was the holy son and the heir of Emperor Qin, a big deal by association, but now, their all was for him, Qin Ting, himself. Inside the main hall, Qin Ting sat cross-legged, with war on the horizon. Qin Ting's plan, agreed upon 3 days prior, was set in motion. The first step, spark an all-out war between the 2 holy lands. Then, when the ancient shrine palace and the Yuanshi sect were weakened, he'd step in. Given the situation at the ancient shrine, the Xiantian sect would be welcomed with open arms. Then, with the 2 holy lands attacking the Yuanshi sect from both sides, that sect would be history. Finally, riding the wave of victory, he'd absorb the ancient shrine palace. Countless lives would be lost, countless monks would fall, and the entire eastern wasteland would be thrown into chaos because of Qin Ting's scheme. But Qin Ting felt nothing. He saw himself as a god looking down on mortals, regarding the eastern wasteland as nothing more than a chessboard, and his goal wasn't just for Xiantian's sect to rule the eastern wasteland. He craved the thrill of playing the game. Everyone, even powerhouses like Xiantian's sect, Yuanshimen, and the ancient shrine, were merely pawns. The fact that nations would crumble and lives would be ruined because of him. Irrelevant. Did gods worry about ants? Ants were ants, their fate dictated by the strong. That was the way of the world for the weak. But first, he needed to level up. Although Qin Ting practiced the heavenly mysterious fire sutra, he hadn't fully merged with the earthly emperor's mysterious fire, using it more like a weapon. Now, it was time for complete integration. Another great thing about the Tianxian Huijing was that each fusion with a unique fire brought a cultivation boost. It was time to break through to the divine platform realm. He chuckled to himself, wondering how the world would react to a powerhouse like him. Not even 20 yet. He opened the system all. Breaking through to the divine platform realm wouldn't be a walk in the park. Divine platform cultivators were a force to be reckoned with in the eastern wasteland. Some small sect leaders were at that level. Reaching that realm meant you had a shot at calling the shots. Even with the heavenly mysterious transformation fire sutra and the earthly emperor's mysterious fire, he needed to prepare. Qin Ting scanned the system mall, his eyes locking on one item, the Yujing Xuandu pill. It cost 1,050,000 villain points. The Yujing Xuandu pill was a lost treasure, the stuff of legends. Rumor had it that it was a pill crafted by the gods, capable of aiding breakthroughs, restoring souls, reviving the dead, and boosting cultivation. Despite the hefty 1,050,000 villain point price tag, Qin Ting redeemed it without hesitation. This elixir was far superior to the Wuyuan Dan he'd used to break through to the supernatural power realm. He could have used the Wuyuan Dan, but Qin Ting wanted to be untouchable in his realm. To be truly invincible, your foundation had to be solid, forged and reforged without a single weakness. The Wuyuan pill was insufficient for breaking through to the Shantai realm. That's why he picked the Yujing Xuandu pill. Its effects were not just enough to break through the realm, but to blow it out of the water. Sure, 1,050,000 villain points was a lot, but Qin Ting knew he'd earn more soon enough. The system's emotionless voice confirmed, "Host, are you sure you want to spend 1,050,000 villain points for the Jade Capital Xuandu pill?" Qin Ting confirmed, "Yes." Light shimmered on Qin Ting's hand. When it faded, a golden pill rested in his palm. The Yujing Xuandu Dan. A strange phenomenon surrounded the pill, a faint image of Jade Capital itself. Within, countless immortals lectured on the Tao, their voices echoing in Qin Ting's ears, utterly profound. Qin Ting gazed at the Yujing Xuandu Dan, impressed. It truly was a god-tier elixir. The aura alone was astonishing. Without hesitation, he swallowed the pill and began circulating the Tiangshuanhuo Sutra, starting the process of merging with the earthly Emperor Xuanhua. Meanwhile, in Tianlan country, everything was changing. Emperor Tianlan had vanished without a trace, along with the entire royal family, as if they'd never existed. Then, Headmaster Pei of the Mingxin sect announced that Kangwu Ho Su Nanting would rule Tianlan Kingdom. Su Nanting renamed it the Kangwu Kingdom. Sun Nanting founded the country and proclaimed himself emperor, Emperor Kangwu, and made his concubine Lu the queen. None of the ministers of Tianlan Kingdom dared to voice any opposition, and all surrendered to Sun Nanting. No one even asked about the whereabouts of Emperor Tianlan. After all, Mingxin sect controlled this territory spanning hundreds of thousands of miles. And the entire Tianlan Kingdom, now the Kangwu Kingdom, was rocked by even more shocking news. Emperor Kangwu's beloved daughter, Su Zhitong, was now a concubine of Holy Sun Shantian. Everyone was stunned. Chapter 101. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 1 month later, in the royal palace of the Kangwu Kingdom, Su Nanting couldn't be happier. He was king of the realm. He watched his former colleagues kneeling in the main hall, shouting, "Long live the king." Su Nanting couldn't help but smile. This feeling was intoxicating. He had it all. King of a country, and the headmaster of the Mingxin sect had shown him favor, even exempting the Kangwu Kingdom from future tributes. That was a ton of resources for cultivation, enough that maybe, just maybe, he could become a god himself. Su Nanting knew who to thank for all this, his daughter, Su Zhitong, now a concubine of Holy Sun Shantian. Thinking of this, Su Nanting hurried toward Su Zhitong's Xinhua Princess Palace. Upon ascending the throne, Su Nanting had named his daughter Princess Xinhua, Pillar of the Realm. It wasn't much compared to being Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine, but everyone in the Kangwu Kingdom knew it was a fitting title. Now, no one would dare mess with the Kangwu Kingdom. The Xinhua Princess Palace was gorgeous, a veritable paradise with cranes, exotic birds, and lush greenery. Su Nanting had it built especially for Su Zhitong. Even though she wouldn't be living there for long, Su Zhitong was chatting with her mother, Mrs. Lu. Ever since becoming the queen of the Kangwu Kingdom, Mrs. Lu's smile had become much brighter. Su Nanting had always favored Lu, but she was still just a concubine, a constant worry for her. Now, as queen and the most powerful woman in the kingdom, Lu had finally gotten her wish. Seeing the regal air her mother had developed since becoming queen, Su Zhitong felt relieved. Her mother was finally living the good life, as the concubine of Holy Sun Shantian, even if her father took a new favorite later on, he wouldn't dare to disrespect her mother. Thinking about the past month, Su Zhidong felt like she was living a dream. Ever since the news broke that she would become Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine, heads of countless powerful sects had come bearing gifts. These were people who had seemed like gods to her, unattainable. Now, they were cautious and fawning, just to exchange a few words and build a connection. By now, Su Zhidong no longer objected to being Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine. Just then, Su Nanting arrived, and the three enjoyed a moment of family happiness. After a while, Su Nanting and Lu left. In the main hall, the maids looked at Su Zhidong in awe. She was about to become Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine. A palace maid announced that the head of the Mingxin sect was outside, requesting an audience. "Please, show Master Pei in," Su Zhidong said quickly. She was friendly with Master Pei. After all, her father owed his throne to the powerful cultivator, though, even if Headmaster Pei hadn't stepped in, someone else would have. Soon, Headmaster Pei arrived with a smiling young woman. Headmaster Pei saluted. "Greetings, Mrs. Su." After a month, Su Zhidong had grown accustomed to being Mrs. Su and was no longer as flustered. She smiled slightly. "Master Pei, no need to be so formal." "And this is," Headmaster Pei smiled, "this is my disciple and granddaughter, Pei Wenxuan." Su Zhidong looked at Pei Wenxuan and realized she was about the same age, but had already cultivated the divine wheel. The Mingxin sect's disciples were indeed geniuses. Pei Wenxuan added respectfully, "Pei Wenxuan, at your service, Mrs. Su." Su Zhidong nodded, confused about why Pei Wenxuan was here. Headmaster Pei smiled obsequiously. "I was hoping Mrs. Su would keep Wenxuan and let her serve you as your personal maid." Even though Su Zhidong was getting used to her status, she was still taken aback. A disciple of a great sect, the headmaster's granddaughter, wanted to be her maid. Seeing Headmaster Pei's hopeful expression, Su Zhidong nodded. Headmaster Pei was overjoyed, bowing repeatedly. "Thank you, Mrs. Su." "Thank you, Mrs. Su," as if Su Zhidong had given him the greatest gift. Pei Wenxuan immediately fell into the role of a maid, standing behind Su Zhidong, ready to serve. With that settled, Headmaster Pei said, "Mrs. Su, we've received word that Holy Sun Xiantian has sent someone to escort you. They'll be here soon." Su Zhidong nodded. "It seemed she'd be leaving shortly." Headmaster Pei continued excitedly, "It's the Taiyu Flying Tower. Holy Sun Xiantian sent the Taiyu Flying Tower to greet you, madam." Seeing Su Zhidong's slightly puzzled look, he remembered that she probably didn't know what the Taiyu Flying Tower was. After all, Su Zhidong was from a backwater. She knew of Holy Sun Xiantian, but she might be ignorant of the details. Headmaster Pei explained, "The Taiyu Flying Tower is a flying treasure built by the Qin family for Holy Sun Xiantian. It's one of his trademarks." After a pause, he added, "I hear Nyayu, Holy Sun Xuantian's most trusted aide and commander-in-chief of the Iron Guard, is coming to greet you." Headmaster Pei said happily, "Sending such a lavish escort shows how much Holy Sun Xiantian values you, madam." The Mingxin sect was ecstatic. The more Holy Sun Xiantian valued Su Zhidong, the more their investment paid off. Mingxinzong had made the right move. Chapter 102. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The imperial capital of the Kangwu kingdom was buzzing. Everyone was talking about the big shot who put Kangwu on the map, the Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine. Even in Donghuang, that was seriously high class. It was like some small-town girl landing a spot as a royal wife. Emperor Su Nanting had gotten word that Holy Sun Xuantian's ride to pick up Su Zhidong was arriving today. Su Nanting, along with his entire court, waited in the palace square. Su Zhidong, escorted by Headmaster Pei and Pei Wenxuan, was at the Zhenghua Princess Palace. Time ticked by, and the fancy ride hadn't shown up yet, but Emperor Su Nanting and his officials weren't about to get impatient. They waited quietly, looking as respectful as possible. The capital was chattering. Inside a tea house, a bunch of monks from some backwater sect were shooting the breeze. "I heard Holy Sun Xuantian's ride to pick up Mrs. Su is rolling into town today." One of the younger guys piped up. "Wonder what kind of ride the Holy Sun's sending," another asked. "Gotta be something unreal," an eager-looking monk blurted, "Maybe it's a spaceship." I ain't never seen a spaceship, the others gave him a look. Duh, it's a spaceship. You missed the trip last time and didn't get to ride with us, you hick. Then, a monk in a silk robe chuckled, I actually know what Holy Sun Shantian sent for Mrs. Su. Everyone turned to him, curious. Spill it, Zhang. This guy was a star pupil in their little sect and knew a thing or two. Zhang leaned in, all mysterious. The sect leader told me that Holy Sun Shantian sent the Taiyu Sky Palace, that he looked around at their blank faces, and a smug grin spread across his face. They had no clue. You yokels. The Taiyu Sky Palace is a mobile palace built by the Qin family for Holy Sun Shantian. It's his personal ride. He puffed out his chest like he owned the thing, the others owed a nod. The eager-looking disciple then asked, how big is it? Zhang froze. How should he know? He'd never seen it. He was just repeating what his teacher said to impress the others, but he wasn't about to lose face now. Remembering that the spaceship they'd taken was about 20 feet long, the Holy Sun's ride had to be bigger. About 300 feet long, he said, 300 feet. Everyone gasped, a palace that size? Only the Holy Sun could pull that off. Right as they were getting all worked up about the Sky Palace, the sky turned dark, everyone looked up. The whole country noticed something was off, then a craft that blew everyone's minds floated into view over the capital. It stretched for thousands of feet, hundreds of feet high. It looked like a palace complex, all pavilions and towers. Beautiful, a floating island. A huge flag flew from it, the word Qin emblazoned on it. The Taiyu Sky Palace. It hovered over the Kangwu Kingdom, casting a shadow that dwarfed the capital. People on the ground were like ants. Look! What is that? They cried, monks held their breath. This was the Taiyu Sky Palace they'd only heard about. Seeing it up close was unbelievable. Zhang and his buddies stared, speechless. 300 feet. This thing was dozens of times that big. Zhang could only think, this is so embarrassing. Emperor Su Nanting stared, too, his breath caught in his throat, awestruck. Su Zhitong, Headmaster Pei, and Pei Wenxuan stood in the palace square, equally stunned by the Sky Palace. The behemoth settled over the palace, and a ramp descended, connecting the Sky Palace to the palace gate. Nyayu, with a few maids in tow, stepped off, looking at the emperor and his entourage. By order of the young master, I've come to welcome Mrs. Su. He announced. Then, a rainbow arched from the Sky Palace, touching down at the palace gate. It was like a fairy tale, the Rainbow Bridge. Nyayu bowed to Su Zhitong. Nyayu, Commander-in-Chief of the Iron Guard, greets Mrs. Su. Su Zhitong was getting used to being greeted, but this was someone close to Holy Sun Shantian. Nyayu was a big deal, even in the eastern wasteland. Commander Nya, no need to be so formal, she replied, a little nervous. Lin Wenbai, holed up in Uncle Zhongyi's mansion, saw the whole thing looming over the capital. After a long pause, he let out a breath. Any bitterness he held towards Holy Sun Shantian melted away. He could never measure up to someone like that. Maybe someone like that was Zhitong's destiny,